You wake up tomorrow and your job is gone. Not just your job, every job. Money doesn't exist, your boss doesn't exist, Monday doesn't exist. No alarm, no emails, no one asking you to circle back on anything. Just you, the morning, and a question. What do you actually do now? Here's the uncomfortable part. Every human who lived before 10,000 years ago woke up to exactly that question. Every single morning for 300,000 years. And their answer looked nothing like what you'd expect. Because the story we've been told about ancient humans is almost completely wrong. We picture them terrified, scrambling, running from predators at dawn, collapsing from exhaustion at dusk. Brutal, short, miserable lives. Every waking moment a fight just to stay alive. But that's not what the evidence shows. Not even close. In the 1960s, anthropologist Marshall Sahlins did something that sounds obvious, but nobody had actually done before. He looked at how modern hunter-gatherer groups, people still living the way our ancestors did, actually spent their time, hour by hour, day by day. He studied the Jew/Hawanzi of the Kalahari, the Hadza of Tanzania, Aboriginal groups in Australia, completely different continents, completely different environments. Same result. 3 to 5 hours a day spent on what you'd call work. Hunting, gathering, making tools, maintaining shelter. That's it. The rest of the time, genuinely, completely free. Sahlins called them the original affluent society. Not because they had a lot of stuff. They had almost nothing, deliberately, because everything you own is something you have to carry. But because they had the one thing every modern human is desperately chasing and almost never catching: time. Unscheduled, unmonetized, actually free time. Compare that to you. Between your job, your commute, your phone, the general exhausting overhead of keeping a modern life running, most people end up with about 2 to 3 hours of real leisure a day. And most of that is spent staring at a screen. We are working more hours with more stress and less rest than people who hunted animals with sticks. Let that sit for a second. So, what did they actually do with all that time? Let's start with what archaeologists found that shouldn't exist if life was pure survival: art. In 1994, explorers discovered Chauvet Cave in southern France. Inside were paintings made roughly 36,000 years ago. Horses mid-gallop, lions hunting in packs, rhinoceroses charging, rendered with perspective, movement, and shadow so sophisticated that contemporary artists who study them are genuinely stunned. Some of the artists use the natural curves of the cave walls to give the animals three-dimensional form, so that when viewed by flickering firelight, the only light they had, the horses and bison appeared to breathe, to move. They built a cinematic illusion into stone walls in the dark, 36,000 years ago. Someone lay on their back on a cold cave floor for hours doing this, not for food, not for survival, because they had something to say and they found a way to say it in a medium that would outlast everything else they ever touched. That is not primitive. That is extraordinary. Art wasn't the only thing. In Blombo's cave in South Africa, archaeologists found 100,000-year-old shell beads, tiny holes drilled through seashells, clearly meant to be strung as jewelry. The nearest coastline was 20 kilometers away. Someone walked 40 kilometers round trip just to collect shells, then spent hours carefully drilling holes with stone tools, because they wanted to look good. In Germany, researchers found a 40,000-year-old flute carved from a vulture bone. 5 finger holes, perfectly spaced. Whoever made this understood music. They understood pitch, and they spent serious time crafting it. Not for hunting, not for defense, for music. But here's what fascinates me most. It's not the art. It's what happened after dark. In 2014, anthropologist Polly Wiesner spent years recording conversations among the Jew/Hawanzi. She found something striking. During the day, about 80% of conversations were practical. Who saw animal tracks? Which plants were ready? Complaints about someone not sharing fairly. But at night, around the fire, everything changed. 81% of conversations shifted to stories, myths about how the world began, tales of ancestors who did impossible things, jokes that made everyone laugh, adventures from distant places. Wiesner argued this is where human culture was actually born. Gods, spirits, the past, the future. Things you can only think about when your stomach is full and you're safe. The campfire wasn't just warmth. It was the original theater, the original classroom, the original church. And then they slept. But not the way you sleep. Before artificial light, humans didn't sleep in one continuous 8-hour block. Historical records, diaries, medical texts going back centuries all describe the same pattern. First, sleep for about 4 hours. Then a wakeful period of 1 to 2 hours in the middle of the night. Then second sleep until dawn. During that middle window, people didn't lie there in anguished insomnia. They got up, they talked, they reflected. They used the quiet hours for the kind of thinking the busy daytime didn't allow. First sleep, watch. Second sleep. That was normal for 300,000 years. It only disappeared when artificial light made the night conquerable. When factories needed workers at the same time every morning. When the schedule replaced the sun. If you sometimes wake up at 2 a.m. feeling oddly alert and calm, your body isn't malfunctioning. It's remembering something very old. About 10,000 years ago, something changed. Humans in the Fertile Crescent began planting seeds and domesticating animals. And agriculture is a trap. A beautiful, civilization-building, unavoidable trap. Once you start farming, you can feed more people. More people means you need more food. More food means more farming. The population exploded and there was no going back. Too many mouths to feed by hunting and gathering anymore. You were locked in. And farming required far more labor. Plowing, planting, weeding, harvesting, storing, defending crops. The skeletal evidence is unambiguous. Early farmers were shorter. Their bones showed nutritional deficiencies. Their teeth were riddled with cavities. They had arthritis in their spines from repetitive labor. They worked harder, ate worse, died younger. And the population kept growing. With larger populations came specialists, toolmakers, traders, priests, administrators, and eventually, jobs. The idea that your time belonged to someone else in exchange for resources. By the time we built cities, the original human lifestyle was gone. You spend 90,000 hours of your life working. Your ancestors spent about 17 hours a week on survival. You call waking up at 2 a.m. insomnia. They called it the watch. You spent your life chasing success by standards society invented. They woke up every morning already free, already enough, nothing to prove to anyone. They didn't need to become something. They already were. We tell ourselves the story of progress, that each generation builds on the last, that modern life is the destination all of human history was pointing toward. But somewhere between the cave paintings and the Monday morning meeting, we made a trade. We got food security, we got cities, we got everything, and we gave away the days. So be honest, if you had to choose modern comfort with a life full of work or ancient freedom with a life full of uncertainty, which one would you pick?